with kids with everything from dinosaurs to toy cars and everything in between. I mean, I've worked with kids who like to line up clothespins. That was just the favorite thing they like to do. So we tried hanging clothespins off of all sorts of different things to see what worked and what didn't work. We tried connecting the clothespins together and forming long chains of clothespins. I put them on as jewelry if I have to. I mean, you know, anything for the child's interest. And I love it when they will actually add that to their own play in the future because maybe they hadn't thought of that variation before. But then, of course, we also have the kid who wants to do it the same way every
So
time.
then what do we do? Hi, I'm Stacy Neustadt. I am a speech language pathologist and the CEO at Making Sense of Autism, and I'm a student of Susan.
And I'm Susan Galabach. I am a now retired occupational therapist who has worked many, many years after I discovered even my own autism with other autistic individuals. I founded Making Sense of Autism because of my passion to not only understand my brain and how it worked differently, but to try to explain what I've learned to other people so that they're more understanding and therefore more accepting and more accommodating to autistic individuals.
So, our goal is to help you provide the right support without trying to fix autism, but by understanding it. So, whether you're a parent, teacher, therapist, or just someone who wants to learn, you're in the right place. Be sure to subscribe and join us every week. We talk about a new topic. Thank you for being here and taking the time to better understand autistic individuals. If our message today resonates with you, make sure to subscribe and follow along. We also share a weekly newsletter with free tools and ideas that you can use right away. You can find our newsletter at www.makingsenseofautism.com. You might see we have a new guest today. Tara is an autistic speech language pathology assistant. She's passionate about educating the community on co-occurring conditions that frequently are seen in autistic individuals. She also loves talking about Gestalt language acquisition and Gestalt language processors. And she loves talking about autistic play, which is what we're going to talk about today. So I want you to think about a time where maybe you were trying to play with your autistic child or your autistic student, but they keep doing the same thing over and over, and you're not quite sure how to join them, what to say, or if you should redirect, if you should join them. So you either take over the play or step back, and that connection gets missed. But what if that moment right there is actually the doorway to connection? So I want you to be sure to stick with us through this full conversation because at the end, you'll know exactly how to enter their world, and we're going to share a tool with you to help you do it. So stay to the end. So, Tara, and Sue, when I talk to you, I definitely want you to add the adult autistic perspective because I think it's really important in this conversation that we talk about play across generations because we play as adults as well. So I'll start with Tara first in terms of kids, but Tara, what assumptions are we making when we label play as non-functional or not meaningful?
Well, first of all, we haven't asked the child in most cases, I would have to say.
Mhm.
Especially, well, I will admit it's hard to do that in somebody who is primarily non-speaking, or somebody who isn't really conversational yet. But the thing is, I think there's a lot more going on in our heads. When you talk to autistic adults, a lot of us who have learned about it center our autistic mindset around the sensory differences that we had as children and that we frequently still have. I have to say, I have major sensory differences still. And I'd have to say that, when you take those sensory differences into account, things that look like stimming, which people think of as purposeless, suddenly take on a new meaning. Maybe it's taking longer for the child to process cause and effect, which explains all that play we see with a kid dropping things repeatedly right there. And what if you are trying to get things organized for yourself? Well, that would explain sorting things into piles or lining them up or all these other things people call purposeless play. So,
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up the dropping. I have lots of clients who will pick things up and let it drop, which they will let me join in that play. But
mhm.
is that like a first step to something else? What should we model from there, or should we just join them and connect with that play?
Well, I call it experimental play, and I'll frequently connect with them through that play. But I've also had really good luck with a couple of variations on it that I've tried. The cause and effect play that a lot of kids like is bubbles. So I buy those like 6 and 12 packs of bubbles, and I put just a few drops of color, food color, regular food color in each of the bubbles. And we blow those bowls together. And that way, you do that on a piece of butcher paper or something outside, and you've got a piece of art that the child created that the teacher doesn't even really have to do anything other than maybe model the first blowing of a bubble or two. So I've had really good luck with that one. And parents are like, oh my God, nobody hand over handed my child into doing it.
Yeah, I love that idea. And, I know my brain is very literal and black and white. So when I think of cause and effect, I think of those cause and effect toys. But I love
Mhm,
your example. And actually, that makes me think of my client who loves to drop things. He
mhm.
loves my rocket balloons, but instead of making them fly, he likes to pop them. And so I'll ask him, should it fly or do you want to pop it? And so he really, now that you've explained that, I'm thinking he does. He's learning that cause and effect in other ways. And so, us kind of thinking out of the box, how else can I incorporate cause and effect, but not even necessarily with a toy, with so many different activities? I love that
Yeah.
idea.
Well, I mean, opening and shutting a door, turning on and off the light switch, that's all cause and effect.
Yeah, and functional. Absolutely.
Yeah, flushing the toilet for that
Yeah,
matter.
absolutely.
I've had a couple of kids who were toilet flushers.
Oh, yes. And again, that's, how can you build on that idea that that's their strength? They're curious about cause and effect. And there are so many other ways we can kind of redirect to, here, let's do it in this play way. So, Sue, when you're thinking about autistic adults, I know, we also talk about play as a stress reliever. And I don't know if it looks non-functional to a spouse or non-functional to other people. But how would you describe adult play and what that means for the adult, what it's doing for them?
Well, in the support group that I run for autistic adults, we have access to games. Um, and if you observe closely, um, they will play games, but sometimes it's still that parallel play. Um, or one person will get out a puzzle. They may be working on the same puzzle, but actually quite like I'm doing this section, you're doing that section. It's not what you would call cooperative play, um, but it's more that parallel play. In other words, I um, oh, it's like when my husband would ask me to come sit in the living room, and even though he was watching TV, sports or something on TV, he just wanted my physical presence
Yeah.
because it was comforting to him to have somebody else share, even if I wasn't watching the TV, it didn't matter to him. But I think that's kind of what autistic adults are getting out of it. They want companionship. They want to know that what they're enjoying doing, someone else is enjoying doing, but it doesn't have to be collaborative.
Mhm.
Um, it can still be pretty much isolated. Yes, they do play games that require turn taking, um, etc. But you don't see the social chatter that you see with other people that are playing games. It's an opportunity to socialize for most people. Whereas for the autistic, they're playing the game because they're playing the game. They want to follow the rules. They want to hope to achieve a win or whatever is the goal is of the game. Um, it just is going to look a little bit different.
Hmm.
But wouldn't you say the foundation of both for kids and for adults, that foundation is still that desire for the connection? But as we know with autistic individuals, taking that language out actually probably feels a little bit better because trying to
Mhm,
play while adding the language, like that's too much. And
mhm.
so really remembering, okay, you might connect with language, but that doesn't mean your child, your adult child, your adult client, they're going to connect with language. So really being observant, it sounds like is really important.
And remember, the autistic doesn't shift easily.
Yeah.
So if you want to combine playing a game, because the focus for an autistic when they're playing a game is on the game,
Hmm.
following the rules, doing exactly, but just having you there as a companion is meaningful. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean social conversation. We can't shift between focusing on the what we're trying to do in the game and then shifting to a conversation and back again. That kind of interactive play that the way typicals would doesn't work. In fact,
Yeah.
it's a turnoff.
I've seen a kind of prompted version of it that works for some of us, because I use Cards Against Humanity. I will obviously, if working with somebody who's young, pull out the most culturally inappropriate of the cards. But
Mhm.
yeah, once they get to about 16, 17, I don't worry about that so much. But I've played that with a number of other autistic people, and we've just had a blast doing it. And sometimes we'll get around to asking, well, why did you give that response?
I could see that really working with individuals who really love to learn about
Mhm.
different topics, like, government or just learn about different things, and then learn about other people's perspectives. Yeah, I could see that working with individuals who like to kind of
Yeah.
argue sometimes or debate. So, yeah, in terms of play with kids, Tara, what might repetitive play actually mean from the autistic person's perspective? Because we often see that repetitive play, but what does it
Mhm.
mean from your perspective?
I've seen a few different things. Well, obviously, I've already talked about cause and effect. With the organizational play, with like lining things up or piling things that are all the same color, I've actually seen a kid who liked to line things up by weight. It's been me a while to figure that one out. I mean, it's like, what do these things have in common? What in the world? Yeah, but, like I said, I've seen a lot of varieties on it. I've seen kids who, when confronted with, different toys, will have the same output every time, and sometimes when that output is verbal, I'm, like, looking at them and I'm like, "Is this a request? Is this something you want? Is the because sometimes it's kind of obvious if somebody's playing with like a little set of cookies or cupcakes or whatever, and they start to try to shove them in a little toy oven. Oh, maybe they want some of that.
Mhm.
Maybe that's their way of telling you without words that they want a cookie or a cupcake or some other sweet. Um, so I've seen a few different variations on it that.
I, oh, go ahead. That what?
No, it's okay.
I was going to say, I have a client right now that I work with, and whenever I bring Putty, he
Hmm.
has the same gestalts that he will use during our play. And it's been great because I can expand on those. We can use them in the play. I can kind of mitigate them and add my own gestalts, but it's the same ones each time. And they kind of get clearer and clearer each time we play as well. And I know, like, from my perspective, as any child, they do things over and over again to learn and get better
Hmm.
at it. And I
Yeah.
think as adults, we kind of forget that, especially with autistic individuals, especially kids that just open and close doors, and parents think of as they're just, perseverating on the door. And it's like, no, kind of going back to cause and effect. They're learning through that play, which kind of leads to my next question of, when you're playing with your autistic clients that are younger, what do you feel like they're learning or experiencing during play that maybe their parents are missing? Or if a different therapist was working with them, what do you feel like people miss during that play?
I'd have to say a lot of them miss the sensory components. I mean, I've played with kids with everything from dinosaurs to toy cars and everything in between. I mean, I've worked with kids who like to line up clothespins. That was just the favorite thing they like to do. So we tried hanging clothespins off of all sorts of different things to see what worked and what didn't work. We tried connecting the clothespins together and forming long chains of clothespins. I put them on as jewelry if I have to. I mean, you know, anything for the child's interest. And I love it when they will actually add that to their own play in the future because maybe they hadn't thought of that variation before. But then, of course, we also have the kid who wants to do it the same way every
So
time.
then what do we do?
That really depends on the kid.
Yeah.
If you're trying to imitate it and you don't quit it quite right, sometimes the kid throws a tantrum.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, you want it this one exact way. Hmm. Then I try to get into their head and figure out why. I only come across that pretty rarely, though. I mean, usually it doesn't like cause a tantrum. Usually, if I try to do it and get it slightly wrong, they'll just correct it.
And I'd love your perspective on that too, Sue. When a therapist or parent is trying to play with their child and maybe tweak it a little bit, what should we not do that? What do you think? What should our role be in those moments?
Is if you start with what interests them and why it interests them, as Tara was talking about, figuring out what is it they're getting out of it, like trying to finally figuring out their sorting by weight. Ah, now you know what interests them, what motivates them. Then you can build on what's of interest to them. But if what you're doing is try to getting them to shift to what interests you or what you think is appropriate play, you're going to lose them.
Mhm.
They're going to recognize right off. No, you're off track. You're off topic. You're off whatever it is. That's not fun to me. That's not what I'm trying to learn. Play is learning. And if they're not learning from it, now all you can do is expand on their learning. So if uh, uh, what they enjoy is the blowing bubbles, or maybe what they enjoy is not so much the blowing bubbles. Maybe they'll have you blow the bubbles. They just like to see them fall. And when they land and that color that comes out, it's the visual, like Tara was saying, the sensory aspect of it that's motivating to them. That to you is, well, that's just a cause and effect. And so we should always do everything just, let's find other things that have a cause and effect. No, no, no. If it doesn't have the same sensory component, I mean, excuse me, anything that I can spin, I still do to this day. If it's spinnable, man, I'm going to try it and I'm going to do it over and over. I just love to watch things spin. Um, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to expand on that, except you can find other things that I haven't thought about that could spin.
Yeah, that's how you expand on it. Exactly. I love that idea. So, okay, so if I'm hearing you guys correctly, if a parent or therapist wants to connect through play but doesn't know how, they should start by just sitting back and observing and being
Mhm.
detectives and figuring out, okay, what are they getting out of it? How can I do the same thing, not shift to what I want to do, but join them, do the same thing? And once I figure out what they're getting out of it, maybe it's organizing it, maybe it's cause and effect, I could introduce maybe a new thing that's organizing, or a new thing that spins, or a new thing that's cause and effect. Is that right?
Yeah, and the key that tells you that you've got it right is if you're doing what they're doing that's motivating to them, and then you're duplicating or mimicking it, they're going to notice.
Yeah.
They're going
Mhm.
to notice you. And of course, if Tara says, if you do it wrong, they'll correct you. No, 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 this is how it's supposed to be done. Now they're engaging you in their form of play, telling you what's meaningful about it. Now you can deliberately do it a little wrong. Oh, I'm frustrated. I didn't do it right. I know I didn't. Show me again. Now, do you see how you're engaging them in interactive play? I
Mhm.
want to learn from you. Show me the right way. Oh, did I do it wrong? Look at all the language you can get in there. Now
Yeah.
you're interactive play, not just parallel play. But the first step is they have to notice you. And to notice you, you better be mimicking them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I love that whole idea of joining them. That really is that neuroaffirming, child-led. And just for anyone that is maybe thinking, well, where do you add turn taking, or where do you get that back and forth relationship? This is something that Sue and I talk often about in other conversations. So just know that is something that you incorporate when they're ready. But really, if you are just trying to bond and connect through their play, through understanding their sensory system, how what they're getting out of the play, you have to really start here. And I know, especially a speech therapist, that's what oftentimes we try to do. And even occupational therapists or teachers, we're trying to figure out, okay, how do I join their world? What are they interested in? And I know probably one of the biggest things that I'm super guilty of as a speech therapist is, in the old days, we were taught to like withhold things. They have to ask for the toy or ask for the thing. But we know that just creates frustration. And so if you're a speech therapist listening today, I hope you start to sit back and observe. And like Sue said, you can add language into everything. Oh no, it didn't work. Uh-oh. Let me try again. I actually have a client who loves that. He loves to talk about how things are broken. Let's try again. Or it's not working. Let's try again. There's so much language. And you think about that kind of language is so much more functional than I want ball or something like that.
Yeah.
And so there's so much you can do. And what an easy first step. You don't have to buy anything new. You don't have to get all fancy. You just sit back and observe and try whatever they're doing yourself. See if you can figure out what are they getting out of this and replicate it.
And always think about those invisible senses. The ones where it's really hard to tell what's going on. Well, when I was a kid, one of my favorite things that would calm me down, I had a quilt. I think it was my grandmother or great grandmother, whatever, had made it. And it was made out of different forms of fabric.
Mm.
So I would feel the different textures. And of course, I had my favorite squares on the quilt and things like that. But, think about the auditory. Think about the vestibular system, that sense of that makes you dizzy if you're responsive to it. I've seen so many kids who get car sick, and I'm like, yeah, that's their vestibular system. They're overreacting to that a bit.
Mhm.
Let's maybe try introducing some spinning play slowly at home on the swing, something like that.
Mhm.
And that way they can get more used to it. Of course, if it's distressing to the child, pull back. you know, that's kind of like my immediate thing.
Yeah. Yes, those hidden sensory desires are super important. That's part of the being the detective. And if you're working with an occupational therapist, ask them questions. They can definitely help you discover what your child is getting out of certain play. So we have Tara made a play course that we have that is awesome and goes into play a little bit longer. So in ex during Autism Month, we are having a short sale on this course, 20% off. So be sure to get the link below and you can watch this course on demand. So buy it now while it's on sale and watch it at your convenience. And for therapists, there is a certificate of completion at the end. But if you enjoyed this conversation, we have that course. And then we also have a course for adults on autistic play as reducing stress. So if you are a parent of an autistic adult, or if you work with autistic adults, that's a course that also will
Or if
be
you
on
are an
sale.
autistic
Or if
adult.
you're an autistic adult as well. So be sure to take advantage of this. Tara, thank you so much for joining us. Always a great discussion. And thank you as always, Sue.
Oh, just want to add one thing for April. Everyone knows it is Autism Awareness Month. Please move beyond awareness to acceptance and accessibility.
Absolutely.
If a child is still non-speaking when they're 5, I want them to have an AAC device. For that matter, I want them to have it when they're 3,
Yeah, absolutely.
because we don't know if they have apraxia of speech. We don't know if there's something that's interfering with the root between here and here for them to talk. And that's really important. I mean, once a child starts communicating, the world opens up for them.
Absolutely. I love how you added, last week we talked about acceptance, but I love how you added accessibility. That's a super important piece. So wonderful. Thank you both.
Okay. Bye, Stacy.